Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I've got a question for you. Did the ANC fail to help former President Jacob Zuma in order for him to unite Black South Africans? If that is the case, how so? And how was the ANC supposed to be able to help former President Jacob Zuma in order for him to unite Black South Africans? Well, we are coming up with these questions after observing for some times now that the MK, under the leadership of former President Jacob Zuma, well, they have come up with this gospel which they are preaching to all South Africans, including Africans around the continent, saying that the MK party, under the leadership of Jacob Zuma, it is the only political party which can unite Black people or Black South Africans. While this gospel song for the MK members, in order for them to justify their reason of being, or in order for them to justify whatsoever they have done to the EFF so far, so they keep on saying that the MK party, under the leadership of Jacob Zuma, it is indeed the only organizations which can unite Black Africans or Black South Africans. But on other side, the EFF, under the leadership of Julius Malema, they rejecting all this gospel, saying that indeed the former President Jacob Zuma, he had failed to do that moment. On the other side, we're having Jacob Zuma, who seem to be blaming the ANC, saying that they have failed to do everything as they're supposed to be doing it, even though he used to be a president of the ANC and the president of South Africa. Well, last night, Jacob Zuma tried to elaborate more about these questions. He had to come and try to explain exactly what does he mean whenever he said that we need to be united. Whenever he says that the MK party is the only political party that can unite Black South Africans. I don't want to say much in his behalf. I want you first to watch this video, then I'll be back with more analysis.
We in MK believe we have taken the last route to the final destination. And we cannot fail. Such nations don't fail. This is an opportunity we have been given by our ancestors, by our God, by our angels, if you want. They've given us the last opportunity to make South Africa to be what it is. South Africa is a powerful country. It's a country that needs people like us. It's a country that is respected in the world because it is in a place that is the best of many in the world. It is a country that must do things the right way. We are therefore happy that this party has done something unusual, that in a short space of time, not even on the short space of time, at the call to our nation that let us come together, the unusual behavior emerged where South Africans said, we don't need Umkhonto weSizwe to recruit us. We are going to it on our own. That was an indication that this party is not just a party thought out by somebody. I think the time for the ancestors of this country and the angels of this country And the God said, the time has come. Many of us can tell very sad stories about our life with regard to the fighting of our people for liberation of South Africa. If you look back, you'll realize that our ancestors were highly political, managed to respond to what the oppressors had done in our country. Correctly so. One of the points they made, you might have thought it would never be made. They said, we in South Africa, the black people, should come together and unite in order to succeed to defeat the oppressor. Very, very important point that was made. And indeed, led by our traditional leaders and our pastors of the time, and supported by the whole country, established an organization called the African National Congress. Our ancestors, I believe, they had given it a thought that remain a historic kind of activity ever done in the continent. That organization influenced the entire African continent. That was the beginning of the Africans in the continent to establish themselves, to fight for their freedom. And indeed, at a given time, Africa was liberated, and South Africa was among those at the tail end of it. We were all together. But because those who came to oppress us, felt they could not leave continent of Africa unattended to. They created all very clever things and systems and everything. For an example, instead of saying to us, here is your country, take it back, they didn't say so. They said, you can't write, you cannot rule these countries because you don't know how to run countries. The fact that they found us running our countries was not an issue, and therefore said, okay, we'll give you 1 year to practice how to run a country. They called it self-government, to teach you whether you can run a country. And you were expected to pass the test. And after passing the test, you will then be given the right now to run your country. But what was not happening was the oppressors telling you how the laws should be, how you should behave, that you still have a mother country that in the past oppressed you. They still took the economy into their hands and told you what to do, what not to do. Some of the leaders who fought were angry about this and started saying, sorry, we want to do it as we want. When they realized that was happening, they bought others of our own to create what was called the coup d'etats, who, in other words, were given every power to overthrow the government of the people that they had fought for, and created what was called the kind of fellows who were mad in their heads. Those were too clever. Some of them were given, even soldiers for that matter, to overthrow and rule, and therefore take Africa back to where it came from. I'm sure many of us who care to look at Africa will agree that Africa is no longer the Africa that was a few years ago. That is what has led to some young people say to other countries who had colonized them to say, sorry, move out of our countries. To show that we don't see things the way we are supposed to see what was clearly coup d'etats that were undertaken by the big countries. We could all agree, because our leaders were being taken away, some people were being brought in, and it was not what we had been fighting for. It was difficult for people to survive, because with all the support from the big countries, it was not easy. Where is Dr. Zuma, one of the most vocal leaders about Africa, who understood where to go, what we needed to do? We can ask many more. You can ask, where are the Samora Machels? What happened to him? You can even ask more questions. And leaders in the continent changed to become something else, and were in trouble. Some of us who were released or who got our independence at the end believed this will never happen in our country. Partly also because we thought, we understand we've got deep politics in South Africa. We're very clear. If many countries thought that South Africa was the best, and we all did, we never thought any wrong things will happen. But what happened? 20 years, and the third one saw us following the same route. I'm sure you all remember that the people of South Africa met in the 1950s and developed a document called the Freedom Charter, which was saying how we are going to rule this country. It was a decision of the people of this country. When we were asked to negotiate, we believed it was part of a passage that you went through to our final thing. But instead of us moving forward, nobody has ever talked about the Freedom Charter, which said the people must govern. If I asked you, are we governing today? Of course, some can say yes, but I'll tell you, that is short of understanding what freedom is all about. Nobody talks about the Freedom Charter today, which says we must be equal, because we are not equal. Nobody today can say the land is in our hands, because it is not. There are many things we have identified as telling us we are not yet free. Of course, we hoped that as the young people come understanding more things, we are going to move forward. But instead of moving, we have in fact retreated back to something we never thought it will ever be. The organization that is respected by the entire Africa, by the world, today, we who joined it and were ready to die, and under its leadership, many people died and many spent years and years in prison. Suddenly, those freedom fighters decided to say, the former oppressors are our brothers. We are with them. We are going to rule together, irrespective of the fact that we are starving, we are dying, we are everything. This is what made us to feel, we who are still alive and our heroes have died, it will be something worse for us to say, fine, let us just go because was pet. And it was clear, if you take the role played by some, because I don't want to say every white is playing a wrong thing. No. There are some white people who seem to have been planning for this country all the time with all the money in their hands. And they succeeded to recruit some of the people. And they are actually running the country. There are companies here in South Africa that have everything you can think of, including the broom to sweep. It's owned by the biggest companies and people in this country. I'm just forgetting their names. Who are they? Unfortunately. You will help me. And therefore, the decision to say, let us free ourselves, let us create our own vehicle, because the one that was given to us by our ancestors is now led by people who are no longer us. They don't look like us. They look different. Took a decision, a very serious decision, partly because we did not forget why many of us joined the struggle to liberate the black people.
All right, guys, you heard him very well. That is the former president of the Republic of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma, as he was addressing the MK members at the gala dinner. As we all know that last weekend, the MK party, they have now grown up. They were celebrating their first anniversary of their political party existence. So the message was very clear through the stadium where there were thousands of people who were gathered there. But in this gala dinner, we saw a Jacob Zuma who have to come out and try to lecture some people who don't understand the message behind him calling the unity of black South Africans or black Africans around the continent. Well, he gave different examples. You heard him touching here and then and that. Okay, fine. But before I take you through this speech which Jacob Zuma had given, I want us first to think together and try to see this speech in another way before we get to associate it with the reality of what has been happening. First of all, personally, I can tell you guys that this is a very impressive speech which the former President Jacob Zuma had given. This speech is very powerful. This speech, it is a speech that Africans need to hear, especially our African leaders need to be reminded of the history of Africa, because when we're talking about Ubuntu, when we're talking about the unity of Africans, sometimes other people, they get to be distracted by what the oppressors or former colonials usually come and bring as a distractions. So we need this kind of a speech coming from people such as Jacob Zuma or whoever, Pan-Africans, who believe that it is about time we get to remind our people and we get to teach our children the history of Africa and what the former colonials or our oppressors, they have done in Africa so far. So there is no doubt as Pan-Africans or as an Africans to not believe in this kind of a speech. Do you know why? Because this kind of speech, it is very powerful. These are the speech which will help the next generation to understand exactly what had happened, and the next generations, they'll be able to do things differently by first sitting down and realizing what had took place before and be able now to see on how they can correct a certain mistake. So bravo for that one. We applaud him for that. But this speech at the same time, it comes in the way of politics where there's a conflict, because we know that in the world of politics it's all about conflicts. Politicians, they don't believe each other. Politicians, they don't complement each other. That's even the reason why in most of the case I'm talking about in Africa continent, because that's where we are more focused with our political analysis. You will see that you're never gonna find a politician who's in the opposition political party who can go or stand forward in order for them to congratulate the current president or the ruling party. Why? Because their mission is for them to be in the same position as the ruling party. So therefore, whatever the ruling party does, even if it is in the pure white, them they will always see a black dot on that surface. So that is how the opposition political party works. And on the ruling party, they have also to do something which it will have to prove how good they are. to people of their countries. And that's how it works. So it's all about a world of conflict. Now, Jacob Zuma is addressing this the unity of Black Africa at Gala dinner of the MK party. It was him trying to respond back to Julius Malema. It was him trying to clear up the mind of people who have been waken up by what Julius Malema had said. Let me explain. As I said at the beginning of this video, Jacob Zuma with the MK, they're coming out and saying that they are the only political party which can unite Black Africans. Why are they saying all this? According to our own understanding, they were saying, or they are saying all this, it is a way of them trying to defend themselves against what they have done so far to the EFF. Why am I saying that? Because we all saw or seen with our own two eyes on how Jacob Zuma managed to recruit high-profile members of the EFF. He took them, he bring them in the Mukonto Wezizwe party. He went around and looked for some former directors of public enterprises. He bring all these people, and then once they are seated to one table, while he had to come up with a reason in order for him to defend himself so that he must not look like someone who goes around and loot politicians from other political party. So therefore, that is where now this slogan of saying that we are the only last hope for South Africans, we are the only people who can unite Black South Africans. That's where now this gospel came from. Now, since he's been saying this, many people, they were buying it. Many people, they were believing it, because how can you refuse such a things? How can you reject such kind of an idea where you see people who are coming from different political parties, different oppositions, some they even sacrifice everything they have built so far, such as Floyd Shivambu. He sacrificed his positions. He sacrificed his own movement that he had fight for many years, just for him to go and start from scratch somewhere there. So obviously, this is something that a message which was going to impress everyone out there. But at the same time, it was a message which was coming with a lot of things behind it. Now, guys, they've been saying all this. In return, we saw Julius Malema, who comes up forward in order for him also to clarify the mind, to make people understand of what has been going on, to make people realize that no, this has nothing to do with the unity of Black people. Why? Well, Julius Malema explained it.
No old man with no track record of doing good to Black people can claim that he can unite Black people. Only the EFF has demonstrated that it has got capacity to unite Black people. Only the EFF has got a track record of 11 years of unbroken struggle, fighting for the interest of the Black people in South Africa. No organization, older or young, can claim the achievements that the EFF has made in 11 years, because this EFF, from its inception, it has never been ashamed to be associated with Black people and Africans in particular. Fighters, show me any organization that brought together in the 11 years, in the past 11 years, that brought together almost 120,000 Black people under one roof, speaking one language, determining their own destination together. No any other organization has ever done that except the EFF. What nonsensical unity are they talking about?
The MK policies are anywhere close to the EFF policies. What is Pan-Africanism about MK and about Zuma? Zuma had all the time to unite Black people. Why isn't Zuma united Black people? And then all of a sudden he wakes up at 82 years and then he thinks he can unite black people. Zuma was in exile, was in the ANC, Natal, national president, deputy president, all of that. He has never said black people must come together. Since when is Zuma wanting to give us a land? Because we said to Zuma when he was a president, here are the numbers of the votes of the EFF in parliament, which gives the ANC 2/3 majority. Let's expropriate land without compensation. Zuma refused, rejected the offer of the EFF to expropriate land without compensation. Why would he come now and say, I want to expropriate land? When did he realize that land can be expropriated? We were beaten up, not only in parliament, in the feast must fall. Kids were arrested, into jail. Some of them, their careers were destroyed. Zuma was the president. The ANC Youth League was killed and destroyed under Jacob Zuma. Which unity are they talking about? Jacob Zuma now says, let's collapse the EFF under me and let's form organization of black people, and all of a sudden we want to fall into that temptation. When Zuma has got no such track record, but the EFF has got that track record of uniting black people, of uniting Africans, of fighting for Africans. It's the EFF that brought Africans under one roof, more than 120,000 of them in FNB Stadium. It is the EFF that has gone beyond the borders of South Africa and has got EFF Namibia, EFF Zimbabwe, Nigeria, EFF this EFF has practically demonstrated that it has got the capacity to unite black people. It is the EFF that went to close cliques when the hair of black Africans was ridiculed as not being a quality hair. We went to close cliques. Cliques went to apologize and had to go and give poor communities sanitary towels and so on and so forth. This EFF. It is the EFF that confronted white racism everywhere and protected black people to an extent that even black people who are not members of the EFF, who don't vote for it, use it at their workplaces and in any other place where they are threatened for their own protection. Because we've given black people a solid weapon that they can use to advance the struggle of blackness and Pan-Africanism. Where did Zuma do that? Which farm was ever closed by Zuma's protest? Which white capitalist was ever confronted by Zuma? And today he says to us he can defend us. Where's Zuma when it comes to Palestinian question? Where does Zuma stand about us owning our own banks and mines from white capital? Why are we not being told of the white capital that is behind the formation of Mkhonto weSizwe? And then it's all pretentious. I mean, that racist boy you used to work with, Gareth Cliff, says everyone here agrees that Zuma was the best president compared to Ramaphosa. All white people that I've interacted with, including the most strategic whites. Why would whites think like that about Zuma compared to Cyril that we all know? This is the puppet of white capital. The white capital says Zuma is even better than our puppet. Why? Because Zuma has never been a threat to the establishment. He has never been a threat to the status quo. He has never been a threat to white monopoly capital. So they're like, he needs to come back because under him we're doing well and there's nothing of us that got to be tampered with. Even when Ramaphosa has given them government and said, this is a government of national unity, come white people, let's govern together, they still say, no, Zuma is a proper person. Why? Why would the people, our own oppressors, have so much praise for Zuma if Zuma has got such progressive policies? In the policies of MK, tell me of a single policy that suggests they are left. There's nothing left about them. There's nothing progressive about them. Pregnant women are going to be, pregnant girls are going to be taken to Robben Island. What is progressive about that? Pregnant girls, teenage pregnancy. Most of the teenage pregnancy happens as a result of rape and is done by their uncles, is done by their neighbor, is done by their teachers and so on and so forth. And then a meeting is held in the family that this becomes a family secret. No one must speak about it. So when you say, I'm taking the girls who are pregnant to Robben Island, what about the boys? And how are you going to know the boys? Because you only depend on these girls to tell you we impregnated them. If they don't say, it means they're going to go to Robben Island. Even the most brutal regime of apartheid never took young kids, girls west, to Robben Island. Zuma says he's taking them to Robben Island. So we cannot, in our rightful mind, close the EFF for such ideas. We are refusing. Look at the composition of the MK leadership. There's no gender reflection or representatives. It's a all male squad. And what makes matters worse with such parties, the leadership gets appointed. So you can't say no, but these are males because they are a product of a democratic process which I can't tamper with. You are the one who appoints. You appoint out of 9 males, you appoint 1 female, and you say, I couldn't see any other female. And then you call that progressive. And what is even worse, there are girls who were pretending to be feminists who are now supporting such an organization. We cannot close the EFF for such nonsense. The EFF is the progressive organization that needs to be protected by all of you black people, because it's the only organization in the recent past that has demonstrated beyond any reasonable doubt that it is for black people.
Julius Malema said it very well that if it was all about the unity of black South Africans, well, then President Jacob Zuma, he would have done this long time ago. Why? According to Julius Malema, he strongly believed that Zuma would have done all these things long time ago because he used to be in a very good position with a very powerful authority over him, where he just need to order, not even to beg anyone. No, he just need to command, and people were going to execute his orders. But he failed to unite black South Africans. That was Julius Malema's words. So he had to demonstrate to people that no, this is not what it seemed to be. This is a person who's trying to destroy another political party by him trying to come up with different reasons, which some of you end up buying it. Because talking about the unifier of black people, that should be the EFF according to Julius Malema. He had to give the reasons or demonstrate to people why the EFF is the only political party that can unite black people. He went even far beyond South Africa borders by saying that there is a EFF Namibia, EFF Kenya, EFF Ghana, EFF Nigeria, EFF Zimbabwe, so on and so on, Lesotho, Swaziland. So when he mentioned all this EFF, according to him, is because he believed that this EFF movement, it is something which it is not only uniting South Africans, but it is even going beyond our borders by welcoming up other Africans, and they are coming up in their numbers to support this movement, which is not the case, according to Julius Malema again, which is not the case with the MK party because they don't even have enough ground forces in the country. Now, can you imagine when it comes to outside South Africa borders? So Julius Malema, he was telling all these things because he wants to actually clarify something. And he gave another example of saying that if Zuma was the unifier of black people, if Zuma wanted to unite black people, when he used to be in power, apparently the EFF went with their votes and begging President Jacob Zuma, saying that, please, we plead with you, take this 5%, use it in order for us to take land without compensation. And unfortunately, that failed. This will take us to the many questions which I asked you earlier on to know. If the ANC failed to help former President Jacob Zuma in order for him to unite Black South Africans, what was the ANC supposed to do in all this? Because the president of ANC or the president of Republic, who was back then Jacob Zuma, is the one who had all the power to just say a word and things will happen. Because his word is kind of like an approval for many people out there. When the EFF was begging the land without compensation, what was the thought of the EFF, the ANC and the President Jacob Zuma? What was their position in all this? Because when we look at the history very well, we can all remember that things did not go well as we all thought that things was gonna go. Because we saw how the ANC, they have accepted to do something else, and the next things they end up doing something else. So it is something that brings us to the question, the answer actually to the question which we asked you earlier on, that the ANC, they had nothing to do from all this, because the ANC, they should be led by someone. There should be a leader who will have to announce and say that, okay guys, we need to do 1, 2, 3, 4. And the rest of the ANC members, they were just gonna obey or listen. But if there were not enough communication to this, if the leader did not stood up in order for him to pass his message, well, I think, again here in the world of politics, with such big organization as the ANC, they'll just act like they are not even there. Because even within their policies, how many times did them debate about this kind of topic? So there again, it is either the ANC, they were just too stubborn, did not want to help former President Jacob Zuma, or they try not to even get involved because himself, the former President Jacob Zuma, he did not do enough in order for him to fight for the unity of Black South Africans. So now, guys, all these things once being said in this way, you'll understand again here that regardless of what President Jacob Zuma gave in his speech, such a beautiful and powerful words, but we still have a serious problem here. And the problem is that there is a political fight which we are all now aware of, which is of the EFF of Julius Malema and the MK party of President Jacob Zuma, whereby members of the EFF, they are leaving to join the MK party. And when they are leaving, they are not even living in peace. They just need to be on the other side of the board, and then they will start attacking the MK party, the EFF of Julius Malema. So when all these things is coming out, and at the same time, the MK party leaders, they are coming in media trying to preach the gospel of the unity of Black South Africans and all these kind of things. Well, on the other side, the EFF of Julius Malema, they are left without no choice than to come and try to clarify things, and they have to go and dig back on what is being said so far by the old men of Kandla. And they have to come up with all these things and put it in front of everyone, so that everyone can at least understand that who's trying to mislead who here. And that is the things which has been going on for some times now. So the message is very clear. Jacob Zuma, he gave a very fantastic speech last night, which we all applaud, because he tried to address the history of Africans and what have took place in Africa and what the Western they have done so far in Africa continent. But it is another thing of him coming and try to preach a gospel of saying that no, look, the MK party is the only organizations to unite Black people, when we all know that this are kind of things which was being said by the EFF, because they're the one who've been there for some times, that the one who've been preaching for the unity of Africans, and we could even see how it have a serious impact on the elections of the EFF with their members, all just because their foreigner policy. And out of all the foreigner policies, There are people who only focus on what is the position of the EFF when it comes to the unity of Africans or opening up the borders. So guys, that is it. Tell us also what you think in the comments section below. Tell us your opinions about this message which the former President Jacob Zuma had to deliver, and on how he tried to defend himself and his vision for the MK party. Try to share your opinions so that we can also have your point of view on that one. But beside that, I think that will be all. I'm looking forward to see you in our next video. But for now, continue to be yourself, be good, be kind, have respect for everyone in order for you to be respected. May God bless you all. I'll see you again very soon. Ciao, ciao.